For putting everything back together, we're going to go in the reverse order. You should be able to get a seal kit, part number 403Z-ORK for O-ring kit. I always like to pull out my O-ring kit and just make sure I have everything I need here. You should have 4 large O-rings, 4 medium size, 8 small brown, and 8 of the small white ones. Okay, and the grease I'm using today to put this together, check with what chemical you're using in this applicator, but I'm running a structural silicone, so I'm using a silicone based Moly Coat 33 medium grease, all-purpose grease. And we use this for almost every component on our piece of equipment. So I'm going to be using that grease. And you also want to make sure you have some red thread locker for a couple components on this machine. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pack the O-rings, the small O-rings, into my brass packing assembly. And then both sides go the same. The O-rings go into your applicator in the same fashion on both sides. So each one of these is going to get 2 of the white and 2 of the black, or 2 of the brown in order. I get some grease and I pick up my O-rings, and I start with a white O-ring, and then I oscillate between the 2. White, and then brown, and then white, and then brown. And I do that with all 4 of these. Plenty of grease. More grease is better than less. White, brown, white, brown. All right, now we're going to load the gun body. I like to use a brush of some kind to put a little bit of grease on each side. And then I can start loading it. We start with the medium-sized O-rings all the way at the bottom. This is hard to see, or you're going to use your little screwdriver to just guide these O-rings all the way to the bottom of that counter bore. Make sure to focus some time when you're cleaning this applicator on cleaning those bores out well, so there's no residual chemical behind in the mating parts. Those start, and we're going to start with these ones. These have a groove on them, and that groove faces towards the front of the applicator. And one goes on each side. I'm going to carefully use my screwdriver to just kind of work those down into place, making sure not to damage the brass piece. Next comes the middle piece. Again, O-rings face towards the front of the applicator on each side. Work those into place. Finally, my last 2 medium-sized O-rings. I'm going to install the packing nuts on both sides. And I'm going to tighten each one of these until they're snug, but then to install my stems, I want to back them off about a turn. And tighten them till they're snug, and then back it off about a turn for installation. Okay. Now we're going to insert our pins. We have 2 different sizes, and we have 2 different size ports on the top of your gun. Use that as your reference. The larger head diameter goes on the larger side, and the smaller one goes on the smaller side. And we push these in from the front. So a note on these ones, don't just force them through. Try to use your fingers to spin these, and you don't have to catch every one of these little threads, but you want to kind of guide those threads through those O-rings. If you just force it through, it has a tendency to shear the O-rings inside and damage your seals right off the bat. So provide pressure and just work those through with a twisting motion. I'm going to use a paper towel or a rag to get a good grip. I'm just going to use a twisting motion to press this stem through the packing and out the backside, wiping off any extra grease. And do the same thing with the smaller stem. Now that those are installed, we want to tighten our packing all the way down. I like to use my small screwdriver as a spanner wrench and tighten these packings till they're snug. Nice and snug. Now I'm going to install my last O-rings on the front of the applicator. And a little bit of grease to lubricate your O-rings. And one goes in each groove on the front of the applicator body. And then 2 more on the Endcap body. And when installing this to the front of the gun, you want to make sure all your holes align and that your plate is oriented the correct way. This plate has 2 different diameters of holes in the middle. You have a larger diameter, which matches with the larger side, and a smaller diameter matching with the smaller side. I can place it like that, or I can flip it around and place it like that. Now at this moment I want to talk a little bit about what could be going wrong with your applicator and some common damage parts. What you want to do before you completely reinstall everything is to check your parts for damage. This plate right here shuts off mechanically, metal to metal, on the front face of each one of these stems. And there's a chamfer on this diameter and this diameter. I want to inspect the face of each one of these stems, looking to see that there are no scars or dents or mars on either one of these stems, and then do the same thing on the faces, just the little chamfers around these diameters. And I can check both sides. If everything looks good, I'm going to install it. But you might notice one thing that might have led you to replace this gun is that one side continued to leak while the other side was shut off, and that can be because of damage to that face or to that face there. Mine both look good. I'm going to install it onto the pins, making sure my diameters match the top of my gun. And then again, I can install my Endcap body. I've got the hole for my gun hook. It's important that that faces up in the same direction as the inlet ports on the gun body. Use your 9/64 Allen key to install those 4 screws. Get them all snug with a little bit of a star pattern here. And then I finish them off. Now we're going to move to the back of the applicator. I'm going to choose one of these and push it all the way forward and pull the other one back as far as I can. Then I'm going to take my support plate in the back, and it can go whatever way you want to put it on. It's symmetrical all the way around. So I'm going to choose one side and thread it onto that stem. Once it goes far enough that I can't spin it anymore, I'm going to put forward pressure, and I'm going to use my little screwdriver to turn the other stem counterclockwise and engage it into the threads on my cross member. and turn it counterclockwise until each one of these stems protrudes from the cross member about 3/16 of an inch or so. We'll make the final adjustment at the very end. I'm going to install my 2 set screws. Just grab the threads, don't tighten them all the way down yet. Make sure the threads are good, and do it with my other one. Next, I'm going to put on the back piece. Again, symmetrical, doesn't matter. And you have 2 screws to install. Snug these up, but remember you're putting screws into aluminum threads and they're fine threads, so if you crank it too hard you have the tendency to pull those threads out. So make them snug, but don't over tighten them. The next step is to put my handle in. A lot of times I like to use a little bit of this red thread locker on those threads to prevent it from your handle from falling out. Just a little bit on the end. And then it goes into the gun just like this. It's tight. Again, don't over tighten this one. The screw can deform the plastic handle and break it if you over tighten. Tighten it till it's nice and snug. Next step is to install our trigger assembly. And you're going to put your shoulder bolts in there. I'm going to put some red thread locker on these shoulder bolts, but we have to be very careful to put a very tiny amount. I don't want that thread locker getting onto the diameter of this shoulder. That's where it rides on these cams, and if we get it all the way out onto that shoulder, it's going to cause the gun to bind. So I'm going to use a very small amount of red thread locker. Make sure to use your fingers to work it into the threads a little bit and wipe off any excess. And we can install those screws on each side of the gun. We tighten both of these screws until they bottom out on that shoulder, and then snug them up. Nice and snug. Final step is to install our spring housings on either side. It's the hardest part of the whole assembly. I'm going to tighten these down. I'm going to pull my trigger while I tighten them down and make sure that they don't run into this plate. Based on what year your gun was built, if you have the old version, you're going to run into that plate and then you're going to back it up a quarter of a turn. Same thing with the other side. Now we're going to get the gun adjustment close to correct, and we'll do the final adjustment with chemical in the applicator. So I have a guide sleeve. I'm going to use my guide sleeve to find the flathead, or the back of the stem, and I'm going to just make sure without the trigger pulled that it touches, that it doesn't spin at all. That means it's coming in contact with the plate in the front. Turn it ever so slightly so it touches. Now what we're doing is I'm going to adjust the distance between the cam and the plate on either side. I want that distance to match so that when I let go of this trigger, they touch at the same time. This one touches at the same time as that one touches, and I'll show you why in a second. In order to adjust that plate, I'm going to move these stems clockwise and counterclockwise. Turning the stem counterclockwise moves the plate forward. Turning it clockwise moves the plate back. Once I have those properly adjusted, I can hold this up to the light and let that trigger go and make sure it's touching each cam at the same time. Right now we're just going to get close by eye, and then we'll do the final adjustment on the piece of equipment. At this point, we can remove our guide sleeve. We can tighten the set screw on the high volume side because we won't be adjusting that. And then just make sure this one's snug so that we can make our adjustment later. Final step is to install the swivel, the fittings, and the hook in that order. The swivel first, then the fitting, and then the hook. And you have your insert hat that goes into the catalyst side, and your cap over the end. Now I'm going to show you why we're making that gun adjustment. This is a visual. You remember these parts. We have our shutoff stem, or our shutoff plate, and our stems. We have the small diameter and the large diameter, and those match up with the holes here. If that gun adjustment is off, I'm going to show you the exaggerated example. You're going to have a bent or a cockeyed support plate in the back. So one cam will hit that side first and open up one side of your gun before the other one ever is pulled off of the seat plate. So what we're doing with this adjustment is we're adjusting the level of these screws so that they shut off at the same time, and they pull, when you pull the trigger, they both release and allow material to flow at the same time.